in the last round in 2016. You know, for all our countries, the success rate went down. So actually, for Slovenia, we always had 3, 5, even 8 projects, and this time only one publishing house succeeded, Cankarjev. And actually, even the number of applications dropped down a little bit. So we are now questioning ourselves whether the motivation is changing or the problem is on the other side. So, of course, Mr. Serdarevic pointed out that the small market is a very good motivation for publishers from these countries, but the European Commission, the program itself, they want that literature translation would be done into big languages in order to access bigger markets. So what will you do? Are you working on translating your own national authors and try to bring them in a foreign market, or how will all the support will just get lower and lower in the forthcoming years? So are you aware of the fact that actually the EU scenario is changing, so that actually the Commission is really cutting the support for translations from, let's say, big languages or mostly English into small languages? And what will you do with it? You will just, forget about this mechanism and try to, as it was already mentioned, try to use maybe national support mechanism, bilateral, or maybe.
This is quite a complex question. It raises many points. The two most widely used words today, and usually when we talk about this initiative, is less and lower. We already heard that we are talking here about the amount which is ridiculously small, given the fact that this initiative, if you don't go into the details, is quite successful, and it enabled many translations of really good, demanding books, high literature, into different European languages, which will never happen in many cases. I also wanted to clarify for those of you who are not so at the moment into this initiative that they use this phrase, lesser used languages, and yes, lesser used languages are all the languages except English, German, French, and Spanish. Italian is also lesser used language, although Italy has 60 million people. So the signals which are sent by European Commission are quite conflicting, and this is one of the one you mentioned is also quite it's quite maybe unclear at the moment, because when they had this presentation just recently in Frankfurt, they weren't speaking about this at all. So for our publishing house, I can say that until now we only use the grant for translation from foreign languages into Slovenian, and we at the moment tend to stay with this practice, although I would like to say to those of you, to colleagues who were not successful maybe last time or on the previous calls, that lots of this, although these appliances, these papers you have to fill in are quite extensive, you have to fill in many numbers and budgets and all of that, but at the end, lots of, at least a bit of this final decision is subjective. it depends who reads your application sometimes. So if you are unlucky to have somebody who will find something or tries to find something, then you are maybe unjustifiably left out. So that's, and you just have to apply again next year, because then you will have maybe a different reviewer next time, and you will be successful. So that's also something which has to be kept in mind. Let's say if I just finish this talk of mine with our example. Mladinska knjiga first applied for this grant in 2005, I think, and we were unsuccessful, which made us really furious, and we never applied for the next 5 years, I think. It's stupid, of course. And then we applied again in 2011, and we were successful ever since. So in the last 6 or 7 years. But since we have a daughter company, which was already mentioned, Cankarjeva založba, we sometimes apply. We sometimes compare readers' reports, which we get from the readers, and they illustrate the argument which I mentioned before. So it's part of this is also subjective. So there are many different points in my answer as well.
I wanted to add to another question about the English, the major languages. We were very surprised to find that the things were changed, the conditions were changed, but they were not described in the guidelines. Because our first project was with 3 British novels, and it was okay, it was successful. Now we have 8 books, as I mentioned. 4 of them are English, but of these 4, one is Irish, and another one is Libyan. The author is Libyan by origin, and he writes in English as many other writers, Nigerians and South Africans, and how many others. So actually the book was, the project was with 2 books from Cyprus, one from Slovenia, one from Finland, one from Ireland, one from Libya, and 2 from Britain. So they say this is not balanced. I don't see why it is not balanced. These books are evenly dispersed. On another note, there were three books with short stories and 5 novels. And they say, yes, you have lesser represented genres, another very interesting term, but they are not evenly, they are not balanced. And one sentence which is very interesting for me was, the project is relevant, but the target language is Bulgarian, which is a less used language. Okay, I'm a Bulgarian publisher, and I think it's normal that I apply for books in Bulgarian. So that's a paradox.
So, from your question, we can see that, unfortunately, that Creative Europe program is changing from year to year. That is making a lot of problems, not only for publisher, but I think also for other creative and cultural industries. The problem is that Europe itself, with Creative Europe, I think, does not know what to do exactly, because you change major language, lesser used language, everything is mixed up. So this year in the guidelines you have, for example, lesser represented genres, as you say, and that is so. Graphic novels, poetry, short stories, novels. So we see that there is too many novels translated. Of course, because if you are, the novels are the major in the book branch, and if you want to have consistent project, you cannot put all together poetry, short stories, novels, graphic novels, to children books, whatever. So that is the problem. That is I think that we have problems from upper level, not from bottom up, from upper level. What exactly European Union with Creative Europe want? What we want with our languages? It's all languages, so formally in the European Union, all languages are same, which is not true in effect. And we see it as a problem, and what is European plus? It's culture, on the one hand, and then with the Creative Europe program, especially with the literature, which is base of every culture industries, of everything, it's the ground thing is book. So when you start thinking about film, you have writing. When you think about theater, you have writing, and so on and so on. I don't want to explain on the larger scale. And then you have for the books only 3 million euros. When you compare how many money is getting into the film industry, that is something different. You have only for the festivals more than for the book translation. So, and then to make circulation of the languages, circulation of those things, that is always those big words. And then when you put it in the fact, you have totally different aim. And that is something that also that we as a publisher, as I don't know, National Ministry of Cultures, National Book Agency, and so on, we need to lobby at Brussels for that. So 3 million euros at what we said, it's ridiculous money for book translation for in amount of the euro. If you think that, let's say, standard needs to be one new book at 1,000 inhabitants, so how many books we need to publish in the Europe? Lot. And when you think how many is supported with that project, it's really, really less. So that is something which is, when you compare it, it is really, really very, very problematic. And then you have also this year, what I saw it, so I don't have nothing against it, but on the other hand, you have this year on the project that Dalkey Archive made a sister company in Ireland. Dalkey Archive is a US publisher, makes sister company in Ireland, and apply for a European grant, which is okay, perfect. But it is, you know, how to avoid. I have nothing against, and then when you think about translation of the into English, which is that big language, you know how one publisher is called in US? 3%. Why? Because this is the how many books are translated into English. So there is a lot of problems with that project. So we are very happy that we get money from that project, of course. But I think when we think about what Andres say, subjective of evaluators. So one thing. The second thing, all time changing of the projects. The third thing, so we can start to talk about that. You prize winners as well. So, which is on one hand great idea, but what does it really mean? Is the prize in all country it could be one of something, but when you think is you prize winner better than concours winner, what does it mean? So there is a lot of problems when we think about and how it's developed. And I must admit that I'm not quite happy how it's developed. So we see it from the political view, and this is political problem. This is not a problem of culture, of course. From political view, we have lacos paper, culture, and we see here problems which is reflect on the political level later on.